know of the nature that you give us, the nature that is made for goodness and made to return to you, our Creator. We ask you to open our hearts and our minds to the wisdom of your Holy Spirit this night. And we ask all this, especially through our Blessed Mother and through her Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Padre. So, like I said, welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you. We have a little bit of a shorter class than last time. I know it was like 2 hours, so this is just going to fly by. Oh, really hard out. I have a couple of announcements that I just want to go over really quickly with you guys before we get into class, so I'll try to make this as painless as possible, but no promises. So, who knows that you guys in 10th grade have to do 3 service to others experiences? Who knew that? Okay, some people are raising their hand. Good. I know who pays attention in class now. Okay, so for 10th grade, you guys have to sign up through Bronze for 3 spiritual experiences, or not spiritual, 3 service experiences to others, okay? So we're really focusing on serving others, and it's kind of hard during COVID, so that's why I'm not saying get a certain amount of hours. I think for 10th grade last year, they had to get 30 hours maybe of service, so we're not doing that anymore. You just have to sign up through Bronze to do 3 spiritual, oh my gosh, why do I keep saying spiritual? Just in church? 3 service experiences to others. So like bell ringing counted for 1. If you helped decorate the church, that counted for 1. If you came and wrote letters to the military, that was 1 of those service to others, where we're actually serving others. I give you 5 hours, but no service project has lasted 5 hours. I think maybe the longest was 2.5. So you're getting a lot of hours and credit for these service experiences. And the reason for that is because we really want to dive into what is service and how, like, why are we serving, right? Why are we serving others? How am I seeing God in these service, days and experiences? And so then you all write a reflection after. And it's been really awesome to read your guys' reflections. Some of you guys are pretty honest and like, yeah, I don't really see God in this service. And I'm like, that is good to know, because then we really need to work on seeing Christ in service. And some of you guys said, yeah, that was really awesome. Like, I felt like I was making a change. And that is so cool. It's so cool to hear your guys' honest evaluations of service, because it's really important to be honest. Like, being humble is being honest with who you are in front of God. And so it's so important to really evaluate and say, oh yeah, maybe I could have done more. Maybe I could have worked harder to see Christ. Or wow, like the Lord really blessed me in that time. So it's been really great to read those reflections. Now we're adding the other element of service, which is the spiritual service to self. So you're going and we're doing these service experiences and we're serving others. But it's really, really important to be able to fill ourselves, right? To serve ourselves in the sense that we're making sure that we get what we need spiritually, because I've heard it said a lot that you can't give what you don't have. And so when you're serving others and bringing the love of Christ to others, you have to have the love of Christ. And so these spiritual experiences are geared towards you guys. So you're going to get a handout that really explains all of this, and you guys have to sign up. We meet 1 time a month, 5 times from now until May, and it's kind of like a program, and it's all online, but it's basically just for you guys to come together in a group and really look at a specific element of the faith. So for example, you guys can sign up for the Martyrs for Christ, which is one of the spiritual experiences where we learn about the North American martyrs and how, like St. Isaac Jogues, how he came over and he ministered to the Indians, the Native Americans who had never heard of Christ, and eventually was martyred. They're all martyred. But we're going to be reading this really awesome book that tells how they longed for martyrdom. They desired to die for Christ. And then we're going to ask ourselves, well, do we love Christ that much? And if not, why not? And how can we grow in love, right? How can we love Christ so much that we're willing to die for him, and then we're willing to go out and serve other people? So if that makes sense, you'll get a handout with all the programs, all the times, all the dates. I really worked hard to make sure that they were at really random times and random days because I know you guys all have sports, you're super busy. This isn't meant to be a burden. This is meant to actually be easier than the 30 hours of going out and randomly, counting 1 hour here and 10 hours there. So if you have any questions, let me know. But I'm really hoping that this is going to be, a new way to do service and to really grow spiritually. So if there are any questions, let me know. You're also going to get a handout of your involvement hours that we have recorded for you guys this year. If you do not have one of your spirit or your service experiences on there, you might not have turned in a reflection. You need to turn in a reflection in order to get credit. So if you are looking and you're confused, see me, and you probably just have to write a little reflection to get credit. Does that all make sense? Yes.
The service to self, are those all on Zoom except for those?
Yes. So the service to self, they're all on Zoom. You'll log on for an hour and a half. You get 10 hours of credit. The DTS is in person. That is the only one that we offer in person. The rest are all on Zoom. So a little bit easier. You don't have to come here an extra 5 times if you don't want to. If you want to do DTS, though, talk to me. We can definitely get you signed up for that. Any other questions? Okay, so if you don't ask questions, I'm assuming that that was completely crystal clear. All right, wow. I was confused, so I am surprised. All right, awesome. Then the last announcement that I have is, I know that a lot of you guys have off school on Friday if you're in the Stevens Point area system. So me and Father Brandon and some other people are gonna go sledding at Iverson from 1 to 3. There will be hot chocolate and sleds. So if you want to come have a good time and drink hot chocolate, you should definitely come because it's gonna be really fun. So there's a little handout for you guys to bring home and do that. Awesome. Okay, those are all the announcements that I have. Did I miss anything? No. Father Brandon says no, so I'm going with that. Okay, awesome. We are going to now play a little game. I am not sure exactly how this is working, but we're gonna have all of the core team come up because I know you guys know your small group leaders, but maybe you don't know all of the core team and all of the people who are volunteering their time so generously to come on Wednesday nights to help teach you guys. So we're gonna play 2 truths and a lie. So each core member is going to say 2 truths about themselves and 1 lie, and we're gonna try to guess what the truth is and what the lie is. So, Father Brandon, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Do you have 2 truths and a lie?
I was just trying to think of something.
Okay. Come up here so that
All right.
we can. How about, I'm trying to think. Okay, just say it and I'll think of how this is going to work. I don't have any prizes, but I could probably find something.
Okay. So 2 truths.
2 truths and 1 lie.
All right. Let's see here. I can do like medical one.
Okay.
So I have broken my nose twice. I have had Lyme's disease, and I am lactose intolerant.
Oh. How should we do this?
Meta has a
Oh,
hand
Maida
raised.
has a guess.
I'm pretty sure you're not lactose intolerant.
Yeah, because you were at DTS last night. Meta, give it away.
Okay, Maita gets a point. That's how we'll do it. If you guess it right, you get a point. Okay. 1 point for you. Everybody's pretty good at it. What?
How about for 1 point for your small group?
Oh, that's good. Okay.
And then,
Okay.
so
I'll try to look out for hands raising.
somebody just
Whoever
keep
raises their
track.
hand first. All right, let's see.
Mrs. Rubenzer.
Mrs. Rubenzer, get up here. Yeah. Sure.
We'll decide.
Hopefully she thought of some really,
We'll decide after the
really
fact.
obscure things that not even her daughter knows.
I did not.
All right, Emily, you can't play.
Emily, oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so, does this work?
Yeah,
Is it working?
yeah, just speak loudly.
Okay. Okay, 3 things. I was born in 1973. I have 3 adopted African American siblings that I am 24 years older than. And my second son got married in September, and him and his wife are expecting twins.
Who has a guess? Come on, this is for points, people. Joey?
That's true.
They're expecting. Oh, I get it. Okay.
have 2 more choices.
Oh yeah, that's
Or
true.
do I just say?
The last one?
Correct. They are expecting, but not twins.
I was, if you could tell by our reaction, because we're like,
I know.
We
I
have
tried to
better
scan that.
all right, who wants to be next? Mr. Dubek?
Mr. Dubek.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Wait, is that one of your truths or one of your lies?
That's the lie. Here.
Mrs. Leapak, would you like to come? Mrs. Leapak was born in 1987.
Zip it.
19.
I ended things with my boyfriend because he said that he would never have a dog. I am 5 feet tall, and I had a senior picture taken with a wood chop. Because I'm cool.
Wait, what was the first one? What was the first one?
I broke up with my boyfriend because he said he'd never have a dog in his house.
I think I know which one's the lie and which one's the truth. Hold
Mika?
on. Mate,
Oh, please, did she say I'm 5'1"?
is that the lie or the truth?
Yeah, that's totally the lie. I'm 4'11".
I was
She
like,
did have a senior picture with a woodchuck.
and I was like, I specifically remember hearing the story of how you almost broke up with your now husband because he didn't want to have a dog.
Wait, so that's a lie too?
No, it was a truth. No. Maybe she did. Break up with somebody. I don't know. Miss Garth?
I write mine down. So I'm that lame.
That's all right.
Okay, I went to the Olympic Training Center in 8th grade for gymnastics. I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was thrown off a horse wearing pink Wranglers.
I hope all those are
Thrown
true.
off a horse wearing pink Wranglers. Oh. Anybody have any guesses?
Any guesses? Any gentlemen?
Gabe?
Is that what you think my lie is? Correct, I was not born in Las Vegas.
Oh.
I lived in Las Vegas, but not
I
born
was
there.
gonna say, I thought that was the truth.
No, haha, see?
It's always like the least ridiculous one. It's
Right.
the lie.
Yes, yes.
Ms. McCarty?
No, Mrs. Pincala.
Oh, Mr. Pincala. You'll go first then. Too bad.
Okay. The first one is I didn't know my first name till high school. The second one would be I played with tarantulas as a child. And the third one is all my siblings and I were born in Alaska.
No, put your hand down. No children answering. Stop that.
Any guesses?
Okay, any actual guesses?
Okay, go ahead.
The last one.
The last one is the lie? That's true. My brothers were all born in Alaska. And I was born in Texas. Did he tell you?
I was going to say, you can't have played with
that was the
tarantulas
lie.
and be born in Alaska.
Oh, yeah, good call.
Okay. You're up.
I'm really bad at thinking about lies.
Well, you had the
and
whole
truths.
time to think about it.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I
You
can't
need to
think
be in
of a
front
lie.
of the podium. You're in front of the podium now, so you have to be able to do it.
Okay. Okay. I. Okay. I had Lyme disease.
All right, keep it together.
Okay. I was not born in the United States, and I am a member of the Chickasaw Indian Sovereign Nation. Is that your guess? Gabe, do you have a guess? The first one is a lie. That's true. I know, because that was one of Father Brandon's. We both had Lyme disease. Lyme disease buddies, woo.
Yeah, that was a relationship founded in struggle.
Okay, it's really Meta. I was born in the United States. No, wait, yes I was. Yes I was. That was. All right, that was the lie. All right.
Cut her off.
Good job, Meta. Your small group definitely wins. So I will find a prize for you. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't be president. Okay, all right. Let me. Can I get a time check? 10 to 7. Okay. Perfect. We are right on schedule. Yeah, that would be actually awesome. Thank you. All right. So that was very fun. Maybe if you guys have time in your small group, you guys can do that too to get to know each other, if there's time, when we break off. But right now, we are going to talk about our topic today. And it's a pretty serious topic, and it's really not controversial, but today, our society has kind of made it controversial, so I'm going to do my very best. But if you have questions, make sure you ask in small group, because I don't want any of you guys to be confused about what the church teaches on these topics, because they're so important and because the church has such a clear teaching and it really makes so much sense. So today we're talking about nature, the preservation and the protection of nature. So we're going to talk about first, like the preservation, the protection of Earth, of our planet, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper into the preservation and the protection of human nature. And it really ties in very beautifully a lot of church documents and what popes have said on this topic. And so it's kind of cool that we can be both pro the earth and pro, caring for nature and being, I don't know, just like, oh, did that just go over? Being conscious about like recycling and all that stuff. Like that's a really good thing, caring for the earth, and also being very pro-life and pro-human life, right? We're pro all life. We're pro plants and we're pro humans. So we're just going to talk about that a little bit. So I think on the next slide there is, yes, okay. So I want to talk about proving God's existence. So St. Thomas Aquinas, he was a wonderful philosopher, and he wrote a lot and really explained very well a lot of teachings and questions of the Catholic Church. So you see here, he wrote 5 proofs of God's existence. So why we can prove that God exists, and his 5th proof was God as grand designer. So he said, one of the reasons that we can know that God exists and that God is who we say he is because we can see this grand design. So we look at the earth, we look at even our own selves, and you have to see that there's a design. Like, certain things wouldn't even exist if they hadn't come together perfectly. Like, you can look at science and like the Big Bang Theory, like we don't necessarily reject that it didn't all come from a Big Bang, but we reject the fact that it could have been just spontaneous, right? Something had to design the earth. If you even look at like some of these amazing pictures, like how could that have just happened by chance? Like you can't really look at the earth and say, like all of creation works so seamlessly together, and even like the animals and how like the circle of life works, you really can't look at that and just say, oh, that just happened by chance, right? And so you can see that a designer who's even more amazing than us, and whose intellect is even greater than us, has to exist. They have to exist. Are we smart enough to create a person that works and functions like we do? We don't even know more than half the functions of our body. Like we breathe and we don't even tell ourselves to breathe, right? When we eat something and our stomach digests it, we're not telling our stomach to digest it. Like we don't even know like the entire workings of the human person. And so how could there not be something greater, right, with a greater intellect? So that's one of the proofs that God exists. And so you look at nature and you see, wow, yeah, like there is a design, right? It's not just this random stuff everywhere, but you can really see continuity, and you can see symmetry in the design, and that shows that there had to have been a thought process that went into it. And then if you go to the next slide, like even greater proof of God's existence is human life. Like look at that life. Like how could something not have designed it? How could that have just happened by chance? So St. Thomas Aquinas really does a lot for us in proving God's existence. And it's really cool. Like if you guys are interested in that, like definitely look up his other proofs because they're really, really interesting. So I have some quotes that I want to talk about. We're going to cover 2 church documents. The first one is by Pope Francis, and he wrote, it's called Laudato Si, and it's Laudato Si mi Signor, praise be to you, my Lord. And he talks about on care for our common home, so like why it's so important to care for this home that we have been gifted. Because during creation, like God created heavens and the earth, and you know that story of creation, and then he creates man, and he puts man in charge of all of creation. He says, this is for you. He's like, man is the crowning jewel of creation, and we're greater than the rest of creation because we have that intellect, we have that free will, we have a soul that will live forever. But that doesn't mean that the rest of creation isn't so important as well. Like God entrusted us the care of nature, so who are we to, just like use this planet and not care for it and not treat it with the respect? Because everything that God makes is good, and so we have to recognize goodness, and we have to have a proper response to what is true and good and beautiful. You don't just destroy it, right? You treat it with the respect that it is due. So there's some kind of neat quotes that I pulled from Laudato Si. So Francis of Assisi reminds us that our common home is like a sister with whom we share our life, and a beautiful mother who opens her arms to embrace us. So I thought that was really beautiful. Like St. Francis would always say, like call the animals, like my brother wolf and my sister, I don't know, whatever animal, sister pig. Like he saw them as like a brother and a sister in the sense of we're all here and we're living together and we're sharing the planet. So that's really beautiful. And as a mother who opens her arms to embrace us, right? So like Earth is like you almost see it as a mother. Like we have homes here, we live here, and so like nature embraces us in a sense. So I thought that was really beautiful. And then this little quote: "Praise be you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us, and who produces various fruit with colored flowers and herbs." So just so beautiful, right? And like when you saw those pictures of like the sunset and all those amazing different scenes of creation, like how are you not how are you not, I don't know, you lose your breath. You're always like, oh my gosh, it's breathtaking. It's so beautiful. And the Lord gives us that to delight in it, and he also gives us creation to come to know him. Because you see that little bit of beauty and you're drawn upward, right? Beauty transcends. It brings us upward to where God is. And so ultimately, creation is meant to help us to know God better. So it is so beautiful. So you see a little reflection of God in creation, and that's why we should care for it so deeply. All right, let's see what is on. Perfect. Okay, so Benedict XVI. He is, I swear, the intellect of our times. If you've ever read any of his books or writings, it's insane. Like I read one of his books, a tiny book, it took me weeks, because it's so just wonderful how he writes. And he says, "The world cannot be analyzed by isolating only one of its aspects, since the book of nature is one and indivisible and includes the environment, life, sexuality, the family, social relations, and so forth." So basically what he's saying there is you can't just look at the world and say, we're just worried about, like a lot of times we isolate things in society today, right? It's all about your sexuality, and that's all that matters, right? How you feel. No, like we everything works together because we have natural law written in our hearts, which means when we were created, the Lord stamped on us this law. And you can see in nature, like even like the animals, they follow this natural law. They follow what is natural. And we have natural law, and as humans, we're called to follow natural law, follow what nature says. And so it all works together. Like every aspect of life we look at through the lens of natural law, and we can come to know the Lord through natural law. So it's really beautiful. It follows that the deterioration of nature is closely connected to the culture which shapes human coexistence. Does anybody have any idea what that means? It's kind of a mouthful. I had to read it a couple times. Okay, so I'll break it down. The deterioration of nature is closely connected to the culture which shapes human coexistence. Okay, so we have a culture. You guys know what culture is, right? And like a lot of times, like culture can influence so many things. Culture can influence politics. Culture can influence what you wear and what you listen to, right? Like there are trends in culture that a lot of times people follow. So based on where the culture is, the deterioration of nature can be closely connected to culture. That's why it's so important for us to stand up and to encourage a good and holy culture that promotes the value of life and the value of the earth, because our influence in culture directly relates to the deterioration of nature, and not just the nature that is earth, and not just, like environmental issues, which are big, but like the entire nature. Culture affects everything. And so it's so important for us to stand up as Catholics and promote natural law, promote what is inherent and what is within us that we receive when God creates us. Benedict also says he asked us to recognize that the natural environment isn't greatly damaged by our irresponsible behavior. The social environment has also suffered damage. Both are ultimately due to the same evil. The notion that there are no indisputable truths to guide our lives, and hence human freedom is limitless. Okay, this is huge. So we have seen, like, people don't care about the environment, right? A lot of people, it's kind of like this selfish, self-serving, like, well, what's good for me, that's really all that I'm kind of done with worrying about any other things. You can see that socially too, right? It's all about how we feel, what makes us feel good, right? Well, I don't want to carry this baby to term because that's going to make me feel some kind of way. I don't want to respect the dignity of human life because, well, it's just kind of about me. Because the notion that there are no indisputable truths to guide our lives has kind of wrecked culture. So like today in culture, it's like, there's not really, like, what is truth? Truth is your truth. So there's like the lowercase truth, but we believe that there's an uppercase truth, which is like truth. Like there is objective truth, which means like subjective has to do with you, right? So like something could be true to you and maybe not to other people, right? Like you could have a stomach ache. Okay, well that is, yeah, sure, you probably do have a stomach ache. But like there's objective truth, which is indisputable. It is true for everything. Like God is real, okay? That is an indisputable truth. And now people are like, yeah, it's just what you think. It doesn't matter what everybody else thinks, but it's your truth. Have you guys ever heard that? Like, well, this is my truth. Well, yeah, that's true to an extent, but there are those objective, not, like, it can't change. Like, there is truth, and that's what we believe in the church. And that's what's so beautiful about the church, is like, we have this truth that we can turn to when we're confused about, especially things in the culture and things in society that maybe seem to be contrary to truth. So that's really important. The notion that there are no indisputable truths to guide our lives, and hence human freedom is limitless. So, we're kind of living in this culture today that's like all about being free and doing whatever you want, and they think that that's true freedom. But really, true freedom is coming to know the truth, is coming to know the Lord. So there's a really big difference there, and it's really, really important to recognize truth and to seek truth and to say, like, natural law, there is a law that governs my heart. I actually cannot do whatever I feel like it, right? We want to do what is going to lead us to know truth and lead us to eternal salvation, to eternal happiness. So that is a bit about care for nature. Padre, want to switch? So we recognize that nature needs to be preserved, nature needs to be protected. Well, then it's elevated to human nature. And looking at the protection of human nature, like today there's kind of a war against life, right? A war against like human life. It's really like it's in peril. It's so important to defend and protect people whose life is in danger, right? Like if you look at a human person, if you see somebody who's like, you know, gonna get robbed or beat up, you're like, that is wrong. Like you recognize that that is objectively wrong to do. And so we have kind of like a duty to protect nature and to stand up for especially the most vulnerable. So we say, like that's why we're so pro-life from conception to natural death. Kind of like the two outliers or the two bookends, conception and natural death. Like that is kind of where culture is really targeting this human nature. So abortion and euthanasia, you see those kind of being more and more pushed as an agenda. And we see that that's it's directly contrary to nature. It's natural for somebody to be conceived, and it's natural for somebody to be born, and it's natural for somebody to die at the time that God has for them to die. So it's unnatural to take away life with abortion, and it's unnatural to euthanize somebody before the Lord is calling them home. And so that's why we're so pro-life in those two areas. That's why we stand up and we say we're going to stand up for those who are vulnerable. And I think this is a really beautiful quote. Man is called to a fullness of life which far exceeds the dimensions of his earthly existence, because it consists in sharing the very life of God. Life on earth is not an ultimate, but a penultimate reality. Even so, remains a sacred reality entrusted to us to be preserved with a sense of responsibility and brought to perfection in love, in the gift of ourselves to God and to our brothers and sisters. It's kind of a long quote, but it's so beautiful, right? So like life on earth, we don't see it as the end all be all. We're not like once we die, nothing else happens. We're like once we die, penultimate, so it's like the second to last thing. So we're living life on earth, but then once we die, we're going to go to the last thing. We're going to go into eternity. So we're living this life. Have you ever heard the quote, "The world is thy ship and not thy home"? So you look at it in the sense like we're journeying to that ultimate end. We're journeying to death because then once we die, that's when we go to heaven or we go to hell. That's when we come to see God face to face. And so we look at the earth as not this ultimate end, but as the penultimate end. But it's really beautiful because they go on, it's a sacred reality entrusted to us to be preserved with a sense of responsibility and brought to perfection in love. Okay, so just because we're only here for a short period of time, we don't just put all caution to the wind, like, whatever, I'm gonna do whatever I want, I'm gonna just do what makes me feel good. No, on the contrary, we treat the earth with this respect, because how we treat the earth and how we treat other humans and creation, like we see that little reflection of God, because we see that God created the earth and we see that God created humans. And that's why we're called to love, because God is in everything here. God has created the earth so good. And so we have this responsibility, right? We have a responsibility to stand up and to truly show love to all of creation. So, I think there's maybe one more page. This quote is pretty cool, and it basically says that every person who is sincerely open to finding truth and goodness, because they have natural law written on their heart, they can come to know that truth and goodness. So if you're ever confused about what is true, if you're truly open, like if your heart is open to knowing truth, you have the intellect, you have the capacity to come to know truth. You have natural law written on your heart when you were created. God's law, God's love is within us. But you just have to have like that little desire to know. And you can come to know truth, and you can come to find truth. And the Catholic Church gives us truth. The Catholic Church teaches us truth. And it's such a joyful message. It's like, yes, you are loved. precious and God created all of you for a specific reason. That's such a joyful message. And yeah, like everybody, we all have struggles and we're all not perfect. Well, duh. Like, yes, God knows that. And He loves us, and He's still like, yeah, okay, you messed up a few times, or you're struggling with a sin. But sin is not what defines us, and sin does not take away that dignity that we have as humans, and that joy that we have by knowing that God loves us so much. We're the crowning jewels of creation. And so because we're the crowning jewels of creation, we have a call to love creation and to spread this love and this respect for nature, for human nature, for each other, for yourself. Like, sometimes I think that's the hardest. Like, a lot of people struggle with, like, loving themselves because it's hard. Like, it's easier to see maybe the negative side of things. But that's like a lie, and that is from the devil, and that should just be rejected. We all need to see how beautifully and fearfully and wonderfully we are made and we are created, and really embrace that, because that's like the Lord made us. He made us and He said we were very good. He said all of creation was good, but He said we were very good. And that's such a beautiful message, and that is such an inspiring and true message. So I think that's my last slide. Yes, okay, we'll do Lexio after. But Tina is now Mrs. Leapak is going to come up and just share a little bit more about just human nature and respect for life. This Friday would be the March for Life, so that's where we stand up and especially promote just this culture of life, because as Catholics, we love every human person. We think that everybody has the right to be born. So it's kind of fitting that this month and Friday is Respect for Life. Like this day, this national day, it's like on the church calendars where we really say, like, we love all life. We love and we acknowledge all life. And I will give it over to Mrs. Leapak.
Thanks. You have to flag me when I'm
Okay.
going too chatty. I'm used to talking for an hour and a half at a time, so it's tricky to go 5 to 10 minutes. So I did find an opportunity coming up, actually on the USCCB website for a novena. It's a 9 days for life, a novena for the protection of human life. So look that up on the USCCB website. That's a great opportunity for us to make a difference. And even when it feels like we're just praying, in fact, prayer does so much because we're involving God and we're also opening ourselves up to our conversion, to changing our hearts. And that is a huge opportunity to make a big difference. So today's topic is near and dear to my heart. First of all, because one of the reasons that I know that God exists is because I love nature so much, and we understand God through nature. The other reason is that when I was your age and I was taking like career sort of survey stuff, I was looking through to find where's the box for mom? Where do I check that? Because that's what I knew. That was what was written on my heart, and I knew that I wanted more than anything. But God had a really beautiful journey for me in terms of forming me as someone who's pro-life, because I grew up in a relativistic society that said that truth is arbitrary and we don't really know everything. And I was surrounded by pro-choice propaganda and things like that. And then I grew up and I got married and I got a dog. And then I got pregnant and I was so excited. And we lost that baby. And it was tough. But a huge moment in my spiritual journey was sitting on my deck sobbing and saying to my mom, if it hurts this bad, when I didn't have a choice in it, I didn't have any control over what happened to that baby, how do women that have been through abortions cope? Who's there for them? And my mom didn't have the answer. But actually, the Catholic Church ministers to post-abortive mothers. They minister to people who have suffered through any part of abortion. And there's a ministry, I believe it's Rachel's Vineyard, right? Am I saying it right? And that is a beautiful ministry too. One of the things that's really important to me in terms of morality is that we judge actions, we don't judge hearts. But one of the things that our church calls us to do is to respect life. And I thank God that I was able to have kids and that I was able to feel those kicks and to be ridiculously huge. Because I am 4'11" and I had giant babies. Shannon was 10 and a half pounds, Gavin was 9'13", like a week early. Like I had massive behemoth babies in this, you know how there are those tall girls that have like the little baby bumps and they're just adorable? And then they come to church later and they hold their tiny babies and they're just adorable. That wasn't me. I was like lugging a toddler as a newborn. But I wouldn't trade any minute of it. And part of my journey was understanding how precious and what a miracle life was because of what I went through. And I firmly believe now that I carried those babies because those babies deserve to be loved, because God knit them in my womb, and He gave those babies a soul. He gave them free will and intellect. They didn't get to use those, but they had a soul, they had purpose, and they had a right to life. And we know, if you look at nature, we know that God does not make garbage. He makes some really cool stuff. And if you go home tonight and you ask your parents, what's the greatest blessing that you have? What's the greatest joy of your marriage? I would lay money, and I'm not a gambler, unless it's my husband's money, but I would lay money that they're gonna say you. They're gonna say their children. You guys are also probably their biggest pains and their biggest burdens, and that's the reality of life. Our life is full of joy, great joy, and it's also full of some suffering. But just because there's suffering in life doesn't mean we throw it away. It doesn't mean that it's garbage. It doesn't mean that it's worthless, because God has given us dignity that no one can take away. God does not make anything that's garbage, so we can't dispose of it. We are called to protect that life. I just want to give you a couple super quick stats that I found that I thought were interesting. First of all, we know from a scientific standpoint that from the moment of conception, that's a baby. It's not fetal tissue, it has its own cells, it's replicating its own cells, all kinds of science stuff that, quite frankly, I don't know on an intellectual level, but I do know that it's truly a miracle. One of the reasons that abortion and the pro-life movement is so important is because abortion deals specifically with the destruction of innocent life. We know that there's just this sheer magnitude of the problem that we need to make a difference in, because there's an estimated 46 million abortions performed worldwide each year. That makes it a social problem that's staggering. We also know that it's an arbitrary division of human beings into those worthy of life and those unworthy. No one can take away your dignity based on that being something that God gave to you. So it doesn't matter what someone has said about you, what they think about you, what they put on social media about you. You have dignity that no one else can take away because God gave that to you. We don't have a right as humans to decide which humans are worthy of life and which are not. That's not our place. Am I killing your time? Yeah, I am killing it. Anna's like, you're wrecking everything, but she's too nice to say it. Isn't that nice? The other thing is abortion takes place behind closed doors and is hushed in public. One of the things that I've never understood is the way that the Catholic Church can be pointed as being not pro-woman. And one of the things that I learned after my miscarriage, I was in a Bible study with some lovely people, and there was a woman there that I didn't know, and she had shared that she was struggling in part because she had had an abortion. She was seeing a doctor, she was talking to a priest, she was seeing a therapist, and years later I found out that she had taken her own life because she could not bear the consequences of her choices. One of the things that isn't put out in general to teenagers today is that your bodies are a beautiful, amazing gift. You have dignity, and what you do with your body matters. You cannot escape that truth. So whether you're kicking down a door or stomping on someone's head or making other stupid choices with your body, you will suffer those consequences. You can't escape that. So we are pro-life as a faith. Another statistic is that teens who have had an abortion within the past 6 months are 6 times more likely to attempt suicide. That is heartbreaking. All human life is sacred. We're made in God's likeness and image, and each human being has incalculable worth and dignity. Jesus did not die on the cross for you and me because you are worthless. He died because of his immense love for us and his plan for us. So the church's teaching on the grave moral evil of every procured abortion is unchangeable. It's very serious because it's grave, because it attacks the right to life. We know that it's not a mass of tissue. A person's genetic code is set at conception. The fertilized egg can only develop into human life. It doesn't matter if it's legal. Something being legal doesn't always make it moral. And it's not just a woman's right or choice. There's another life involved, the life of that unborn child. Every person may make appropriate medical decisions for him or herself, but no one can make deliberate harm in terms of decisions for others. And then finally, pushing a pro-life agenda is forcing your religious beliefs on others. That's another attack against the pro-life movement and the church's teaching on abortion. But we know because of natural reason that supports pro-life position. Many non-religious people are pro-life. Even so, religious pro-life groups have the right to share their beliefs. No one is forced to believe anything against his or her will. So, I guess in closing of my spiel, you guys are called to be the hands and feet of Christ. You are called to defend and protect those that are marginalized by society, and that includes the unborn. So, and don't forget that you have lots of worth that nobody can put a price tag on.